In today's episode, we're talking about going deeper with customer problems. What up, nerds? Welcome back to the Brand Nerd Podcast. Today, we are talking about going deeper with customer problems. We're breaking down external, internal, and philosophical problems. This is taken right out of step 2 of the StoryBrand framework, but I want to set the stage here a little bit because when we talk about customer problems, we're inviting them into a story, and that story is not your story, it's their story. So it's really important to understand the actual problems that customers go through. And just so you know, this is not a StoryBrand exclusive idea, as most of the StoryBrand framework is. This is used in a lot of different marketing formulas, and I wanted to just highlight two that came up when I was going through business school. One is the classic SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. This is Business 101. And in this, we talk about threats. And that can represent obstacles to customers' satisfaction and inform strategies to better address customer problems. So it's right there, right out of your business textbook. You also can find it in the marketing mix, also known as the 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. Understanding problems is critical to determining the features, pricing, distribution, and how a product is actually promoted. So we talk a lot about StoryBrand here on the podcast because that's what we do. We help people clarify their message using the StoryBrand framework. I wanted to bring in some outside context to highlight that this isn't exclusive to StoryBrand. That should only further your confidence in this methodology. So how do we go deeper with customer problems? We do that by looking at problems through 3 different levels: the external problem that informs an internal problem and also establishes a philosophical problem. When we don't just harp on external, the problems happening around us, and we get into that internal and philosophical problem, that's when our message comes to life, when it really starts to connect with people's hearts and minds. First, let's talk about external problems. External problems are the most visible problem that your customer faces. These are often like practical, tangible obstacles that stand in the way of them getting what they want. In a personal context, it might be need for car repair. That can be the problem. Your car broke down. In a business context, it could be your computer isn't keeping up with the demand of the tasks you're trying to complete on it. These external problems are how people initiate their search for a solution. They run into a problem, an external problem, and it leads them down the path to try to find a solution. We want to tailor our message to clearly address this external problem. But we can go deeper than that, and that's where the internal problem comes into play. This is the next level after the external. We're getting inside. We're feeling things. Internal problems refer to the internal response that people feel when they encounter this problem. These are psychological and emotional challenges that they face. For instance, if someone's car is broken down, they might feel stressed out, they might feel stuck, they might feel burdened. And in the same sense, if somebody's computer isn't keeping up with what they're doing, they might feel frustrated, they might feel like they're wasting time, they might feel like they're falling behind. When we explore the emotional impact of these internal problems, we pour gasoline on the fire of this problem. They've already experienced the external, but when we can talk about the internal, we connect with people on a deeper level, and people start to realize that we understand what they're going through. It develops empathy and connection. This can be a huge differentiator for your brand because a lot of companies do not think on this level. They just don't dive deeper. They just stay in that external surface world, and they don't get into the way it makes people feel and addressing those feelings, whether that's through just calling it out or creating a customer experience that actually addresses some of the emotional stress that can go into that. This is a huge way to separate yourself from the competition and break through the noise of a really loud marketplace. Then we get into philosophical problems. Philos- Philosophical problems address the larger question of why something matters on a moral or ethical scale. They relate to the customer's sense of right and wrong, fairness, justice, and greater purpose. Philosophical problems elevate the conversation to include values, beliefs, universal truths. It's what's just plain wrong about the problems that they're experiencing. And it directly relates to the internal and external problems that we just talked about. So they're experiencing an external problem, which creates an internal feeling, which ultimately hits them in this philosophical spot of this is just wrong, or I deserve more than this. We see this often in political campaigns and nonprofits. This philosophical problem really resonates at a deeper level with people. In the computer example that we have been discussing, you can go at it from the angle of everybody deserves access to fast and reliable technology. This taps into themes of equality, equity, empowerment. This can help people understand, yeah, I do deserve a machine that gets the job done in an efficient way. When it comes to something like car repair, it could be everyone deserves a vehicle that can get them from A to B safely. Or quality auto repair shouldn't just be a luxury. The power of addressing these philosophical problems is that it resonates with people and inspires them to take action and connect further with our brand. When you're going to uncover your customers' problems, you need to do the work. One of the great ways of understanding the problems your customers are going through is actually to just send out a customer survey. Customers are used to getting the generic ask for a 5-star review or something like that. But when you get a survey that gives you the opportunity to answer things like, what challenges did you experience before you worked with us? And how did we help you overcome those challenges? How did that make you feel? And how did you feel after? And what are some of the things about our company that you feel like are better than the competition? By conducting customer interviews and surveys, we can get to the heart of their problems in a way that we can't just imagine up ourselves. Let's talk about some real world examples of companies addressing problems. I like to dig back and find examples that really changed history, and we can see the results today from what happened in the past. And one of them is the original Volkswagen Beetle campaign. It was Think Small. The American market was saturated with big vehicles that were inefficient and had lots of room, but there was a desire out there for something small, efficient, and affordable. And Volkswagen, by positioning themselves with the slogan of Think Small, addressed that problem head on. It addressed the external problem of unnecessary excess and inefficiency in cars and that internal desire for simplicity and economy. This campaign is a masterpiece in advertising, and it changed America's attitudes towards smaller cars, and the Volkswagen Beetle spent years as the top-selling car in the American market. Another historical example that goes all the way back to the 1920s is Listerine. They had a tagline, often a bridesmaid, but never a bride. It highlighted bad breath as a significant social barrier to personal happiness and success. By addressing the internal problem of insecurity and the fear of social rejection, Listerine positioned its product as the solution to achieving personal success. One of my favorite examples from one of my favorite brands is Apple's campaign 1984. At the time, IBM was the dominant force in the personal computer market, and it had a perception of being inaccessible and intimidating to most consumers. Apple's iconic 1984 commercial tapped into that Orwellian dystopian future by framing the launch of the Macintosh as a rebellion against the big brand. Apple tackled the philosophical problem of individuality versus conformity. When you bought the Apple Macintosh, you were not conforming to the masses, you were an individual. It positioned itself as a tool for creativity and empowerment. and it appealed to the internal desire for self-expression and freedom. But we don't just have to look at historical examples. Let me bring up a great example of a brand that is tapping into a problem people experience right now, and that brand is called Brilliant Earth. These are lab-grown diamonds. Brilliant Earth is a company that has positioned itself strongly against the diamond mining industry. Their tagline, Beyond Conflict-Free Diamonds, emphasizes that their commitment is not only to conflict-free diamonds, but also to quality. This addresses the common concern around lab-grown diamonds being in some way inferior or less than to a mined diamond. I could see this being a huge growing industry for years to come, and a brand like Brilliant Earth may be something that's a household name in another 10 to 20 years. These examples illustrate how understanding and addressing customers' problems has long been a cornerstone of effective marketing. By tapping into the external, internal, and philosophical problems faced by their target audience, by their customers, or characters as we refer to them in StoryBrand terms, these campaigns have achieved remarkable success and left lasting impact on the advertising world. It's important that when you're messaging your company, that you're thinking about these problems on those three levels, that you're not just staying in external world, but you're getting into internal and philosophical. If you watch a recent video I put out on website headlines, I pointed out that philosophical problems make excellent website headlines because they often invite people into a story because they scratch an itch that people have. They hit them right where the problem feels the most elevated. So I just want to encourage you to assess your company message and the problems you're presenting at multiple levels so that you can create a compelling brand story that connects with people on that deeper level. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave a comment on our YouTube channel. I'd love to go in and answer those. And of course, if you're looking for a StoryBrand guide for your company, go to thebrandnerd.com, where you can book a call to talk to me and get the ball rolling on a clear message. Until next time, I'm signing off. Stay curious.